What's up, guys? Today I wanted to do a roundup comparison with some of these smaller Galaxy phone, flagships. With the S24, we got the S22, the S21, the S20, the S10, and the S9. And yes, I am missing the S23. I did trade it in for the S24, but I'm gonna actually talk about the S23 a little bit later and why I really like that phone. If you're thinking about getting the S24. Alright, so let's go ahead and just get started here with this comparison. I think it's pretty interesting to see, how Samsung has been doing over the years, because typically we look at the, the bigger, ultra flagships, but I wanted to take the time and kind of look at, the smaller phones, I guess, except for it's funny because the S9 Plus is, a plus size phone, but it's actually kind of small these days. Alright, so let's check out the design evolution here from, the S9 on up. And one of the things that you'll notice with the hardware over the years is that they've actually been taking quite a few things out of the hardware. So with the S9, the S10, you had the headphone jack and the SD card support. And then when we get to the S20 series, they take out the headphone jack, but it still has the SD card support. And then when we get to the S21, it's completely gone. So S21 on up, the SD card, and the headphone jack is completely gone from the devices, which is why a lot of people tend to keep their older flagship phones. Like I have a lot of people on the channel who still have their, their S10, the S20, the Note 20, stuff like that, mostly because of the SD card support. And basically, they really just took it away, I think, prematurely, basically to sell you up on gigabytes, right? They want to sell you up on buying the higher configuration to make an extra buck. They want to sell you up on wireless earbuds. If you guys remember when Apple came out with their AirPods, the wireless earbud thing was really big and everybody wanted a slice of the pie, right? So it was really a way just to, make more money. Now you still have some phone companies like Sony still has the headphone jack. LG still had it in their phones. But yeah, so that is gone now. But hardware-wise, I think Samsung has been doing a good job. Now, I want to talk about the displays and the display upgrade. So, with the S24, I think that there has actually been kind of like a minor downgrade from the older devices, because the S24 has basically a 1080p display with 400 something PPI. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, the real upgrade, or kind of the real upgrade here, is the max brightness. I think is like the biggest thing here. It being just so bright in direct sunlight. I think 2600 is peak brightness, and I know it's LTPO as well too, which helps with battery life. But as far as like the overall displays, as you can see, they all look really good, and Samsung has been making excellent displays for a very, very long time. I think, we've always appreciated Samsung displays, but just looking at the S9, even if we go back to the S8, Note 8, they've been making like top-notch displays for a really long time, because this display on the S9 still looks extremely good compared to the S24 over here. So the thing why I said it's kind of like a downgrade a little bit is because the older Samsung phones, they have 1440p displays. So the S9, the S10, and then they kind of went with like the 1080p displays on the S21, I believe, and up. So they all kind of have like 1080p displays now. It could be for battery life, but yeah, you can notice it if you're watching 1440p content. But if you're at a distance like this, you can't notice it at all. You can't notice that these displays are 1440p. And these are 1080p. But I notice if I pull up some 1440p content with like high dynamic range kind of content, then yeah, so it is very, very interesting. But that's like the biggest change, I think, with these older phones is that, or with the newer phones, is that the max brightness has gotten really good. And I think this one is about to die. But yeah, so the max brightness has gotten really good on the newer Samsung phones, and overall the LTPO, like I said, helps with screen on time for sure. But yeah, just beautiful displays here. And I think also the biggest upgrade here is going to be the high refresh rate. So from the older Samsungs, from the S9, S10, they introduced 120 hertz, which I think makes a big difference. I think once you use 120 hertz, you will really enjoy how smooth it is compared to the 60 hertz. Now, it's not that the 60 hertz is slow by any means, but yeah, you definitely will notice a difference going to 120 hertz. But like I said, that's probably the biggest difference with the new S24 is that max brightness. Other than that, they all look pretty similar. They still look really good, only because Samsung has been doing this at such a high level. Now, I do want to go ahead and touch on the CPU and just the gaming performance in general here. You'd be surprised, even going down to the S9, you still get pretty good performance. But I think when it comes to the Snapdragon 855 and the S10 series is where you still see excellent performance still. But something like the S9, it can do PUBG, you know, as smooth, extreme, but it can only do it at like HDR Ultra when we go to that graphic settings. But what's interesting is that the S10 is still able to play PUBG at HDR Extreme, which I thought is just really impressive. It still does an excellent job when it comes to gaming. For the most part, the only difference that you'll notice is really like battery performance here. So this is where I would say the S23 and the S24, they really shine. Samsung didn't really improve the battery performance of their smaller phones until the S23, 24 series. But yeah, so the S24 and the newer phones with the higher refresh rate, they can do PUBG at 90 frames. That's probably the biggest difference. So if you're like a hardcore gamer, then yeah, the newer phones are pretty good since you can play at 90 frames. But like I said, the older phones still do a really good job from the S10 on up, like something like the S21 FE. Like this should be able to do the 90 frames. It's just not optimized for it, I guess. But these phones do an excellent job. Like I said, S10 on up is still going to be able to play games really well. This is why I always recommend older flagships, because from the S20, S21, it's just going to do a fantastic job. But like I said, if you're more of a hardcore gamer, you need that 90 frames, then yeah, the newer devices make, you know, a little bit more sense, of course. And also battery life. You don't have to be running to the battery life. And then I think when it comes to the S20, S21 FE, S22, these phones can get a little bit hotter than I would like, except for the S21 FE. It doesn't get as hot, but the regular S21 does. But yeah, so, you know, performance on these older Samsung phones are still extremely good. Now I want to talk about software in One UI. So Samsung has made a big leap with software, especially with the S24. For this phone being able to have 7 years of major OS updates, this phone is going to have an extremely long lifespan, which is, you know, a first for Android. I think Android, Samsung and Google. And also, this is where Samsung is introducing their new AI stuff. So we're going into, you know, kind of a new era of AI as well too, with like the photo editor, the live translations and stuff like that. It is very nifty. The circle to search stuff as well too is something that I actually use quite a bit. It is really handy to be able to just circle stuff and you can search for it. But yeah, so that's basically where we're at with software. But as you can see, One UI hasn't really changed that much. A lot of the essential stuffs are still here, especially if you can use Good Lock on the older Samsung phones. Samsung desktop supports secure folders. The software hasn't changed that much. Like I said, the biggest thing with the software is that it's moving towards more AI. So just expect like a lot of AI stuff. But like I said, really, you know, it's essentially the same, even on these devices that aren't getting major OS updates anymore, like the S10, the S20, of course the S9. And also one thing that I want to mention is that the S21 FE is going to get Android 16, so that's why I always highly recommend this phone, because it's a phone that is going to get updates and you really don't have to worry about the software experience. So it's just something I really like about that phone. I just wanted to mention that. I kind of want to do like a speaker test here. We're at max volume. I just want to see, like, you know, the sort of evolution of the speakers here. We'll start with the S9. Yeah, you can hear a slight improvement with the S10. Kind of sounds similar. Again, kind of similar. Oh yeah, so the S24 has the best speaker. The bass is way louder on the S24, and it has a cleaner sound. It's actually not even close. S22 is a little bit better, but it's noticeably better on the S24. Like, it's actually a significant difference. Alright, so I do want to go ahead and touch on the cameras. So of course the megapixels have been getting, bigger with the newer models and higher resolution video recording and stuff like that, 8K and all that good stuff. But as far as how I would describe the pictures, just simply sum it up, the S9 and S10 actually still do take pretty decent pictures if you're in good lighting. You can actually still get a pretty good shot with the S10 and S9. But if you take it out of any type of good, lighting situation, then you will get a softer and grainier shot for sure. When it comes to the S20, it does a pretty good job with, image quality. I have comparisons, comparing it to the latest phones and stuff like that. It does a pretty good job even in a bit lower lighting situations, but again, not as good as the new ones. But it does do decent, does a really good job still in, good lighting situations, really good dynamic range. The S20 phones still do a fantastic job. Now the S21, I would say, still is very exceptional when it comes to video as well too. Really crispy pictures. I mean, it takes very close pictures to, the S22, 22, 23. Low light photography is still pretty good on here as well too. It's just a really good phone for taking pictures. Like I said, it's a sweet spot, I think, for a budget conscious person and who really just takes a lot of photos, social media, video. And I would say, obviously the newer phones, the S22, 23, these are going to take the best pictures, of course. But the biggest difference I noticed with the S24 is that it takes significantly better video as well. I was really impressed, the S24 and 23. But like I said, the S22, it's a beast. So basically how I would describe the cameras, the newer phones, S24, 23, 22, these are going to take excellent photos, of course. But the video, I think, is significantly better than the older Samsung phones for sure. The zoom quality is also better on the newer phones. But yeah, so the newer phones, if you take a lot of photos, I would say it's worth upgrading if you have an S9, S10. If you take a lot of photos in low light, take a lot of like 3x photos and stuff like that, a lot of zoom shots, then it's definitely worth it. But if you don't, I don't think it is. But the S20, S21 FE, these are actually do still take really good pictures and still pretty good video for the most part, if you're not, super crazy about photos and videos. Lastly, I do want to talk about battery life. Like I said, Samsung has really not made a big stride in battery life since the S23 and 24, in my opinion. The S22 on down, even if these phones were brand new with a brand new battery life, you're still not going to get the amazing battery that you're going to get on the S23, and the 24. So yeah, so I honestly, if you guys really wanted to upgrade for battery life, for cameras, and you just wanted something newer, I honestly would get an S23 since it's getting the AI stuff. And I would just get that instead of the S24 and just save a little bit of money. But yeah, that's really how I'm feeling. But if you're coming from like an S10, S9, I would really consider the S21 FE. I think it's an excellent choice. You can find these for like $200, or an S22 if you want something with a slightly better cameras. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. So it's pretty interesting looking at these devices. Be sure to let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.